You missed some important news from the LGBTQ plus community this week. To ensure you are current, we are recapping that important news. Here's what you may have missed.
University of Central Arkansas student jailed for Trans Lives Matter protest. A University of Central Arkansas student was sentenced to 10 days in jail for peacefully protesting a local school board's anti-trans policies. Alex Barnett, 20, was tried in Faulkner County District Court in December 2022 and convicted of criminal trespass and failure to disperse after pleading guilty to the charges. In addition to the 10-day sentence, which he has since served, Barnett was ordered to pay a $650 fine. Barnett's protest was in reaction to the Conway school board introducing anti-trans policies. Barnett's story has recently received widespread attention after his case was reported on by Judd Legum for his Substack, Popular Information. In October 2022, the Conway School Board voted to implement new regulations that force students to use bathrooms that align with their sex assigned at birth. In November 2022, Barnett organized a group of 20 University of Central Arkansas students to attend a Conway School Board meeting and speak out against the new policies. The group began chanting, "Trans Lives Matter." The police told them to leave, and all but Barnett, Kaylin Botley, and Colburn Clark dispersed. They were arrested shortly after. Botley took a plea deal and paid a fine of $450 with no jail time, while Barnett chose not to take a plea deal, as he felt he hadn't done anything wrong. And no, he did not.
No, well said. This story is horrifying in its premise, but also kind of like going back to that point of like, kids are all right, like, and I'm not, I'm using that word like it sounds I feel like that could sound patronizing, but I don't mean it that way, of course. That is, I take so much inspiration from these folks who are doing the good trouble.
Right. Good trouble. That's
a
nice.
Yeah, but I think what we need to start recognizing when we talk about the power of young people is that young people will show up for you if you show up for them.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the caveat that we have to place here, right? Is that we oftentimes see like young people are the future and young people are amazing. Young people are showing up and showing out because they need to.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is that like the kids should not need to.
Right.
Right. And it becomes a disservice to young people when we delegate this work to them. Right.
Yeah.
And that, I'm all about uplifting youth leadership, but we need to actually be uplifting youth leadership, right? We need to actually be giving them the resources that we accumulate. Yeah. Even me, I'm a young person myself, but I'm in a space where I have resources to be able to uplift the young space.
Well, also one of the things that I think is being highlighted in this story is really the reality of we're entering into Pride Month. We're here, and remembering that Pride Month, the Pride parades all over. It began as a protest, and we are seeing now that the younger generation is really going to have to step into this place and understand that those first days, when that day 50 years ago during Stonewall, we threw rocks. We were arrested. We fought for the little rights that we have now that are being chipped away and walked back. So now it's time. I think there's a baton that's being passed to your generation and saying, guys, you see how we did it then? We might have to do that again. And we have to have courage. And I love seeing these young people smiling with their arrest sheet. I love it. And I'll stand there next to you. Trust me, I don't care. Because right now we have to fight for this again.
I recently interviewed Anthony Fauci. And Fauci told a story about his love of Larry Kramer, the founder of ACT UP in the 1990s, especially in over what was happening over AIDS, and Kramer used Anthony Fauci as his foil for ACT UP, but behind the scenes, for a long time, that the American public didn't know that they were actually friends, and Anthony Fauci told a story in my interview of saying that Kramer called him up and was complaining about how slow movement was taking place. And he recommended to Fauci, Fauci's running the NIH, and said, what you need to do is you need to handcuff yourself to the fence at the White House. And Fauci tells me in the story that he told Kramer, why would I do that? Because I'm friends with the president. All I have to do is call him. And Kramer's point was, it's not moving fast enough. And you need to do something dramatic to prove you're not going to stand for it. That's what you just said. The picking up the first rock is where we're at. It's funny about this story. I didn't realize this story was coming. I sat in a meeting today because June Pride is coming, and it's going to be a big month. The next 60 days, this is May 3rd, the next 60 days may be the most important 60 days that we've seen in the LGBTQ community in decades. We'll see. We'll see. But I thought to myself today in a meeting that I was sitting at that was talking about this, am I going to protest over the drag issue? But the drag issue is really a trans issue. They're getting the trans community via drag is what they're doing. It's insidious. They're dividing and conquering our community. If it comes to that point where the protest brings arrest, Al, are you going to protest? And I thought about that today. I haven't come to the conclusion of that question, but I'm really siding very heavily that I'm going to be arrested, and that's coming. I'm going to be arrested because at some point I can't accept anymore.
I mean, I just had a conversation with someone the other day, people, because we're seeing things get really, really bad. And now we're seeing families having to make decisions about whether or not they can stay in the state, right? We are becoming that Saudi Arabia that we're talking about. Right. That, Quality Florida just issued a travel advisory a few weeks ago.
I totally disagree.
Well, yeah, but we're seeing our rights being stripped away. It's getting really, really strenuous. We are, in no uncertain terms, we are approaching a French genocide, and that is something that we have to grapple with. That is the direction that we're headed in. And so I had a conversation recently with someone. They said, what is the point at which you say you can't take it anymore and you need to leave? And I looked them dead in the eyes and I said, there is no point. I said, there is no point at which I leave this state, that there could be a law saying that, we could have a Lawrence versus Texas overturned, and they say that being gay, is against the law, and that you can be arrested just for being gay, just for posting about being gay. And I would be here fighting that law. And it is important that people are standing firm.
One last point to that. I love the television shows that through fictional writing create the what if something was changed in history. And I read an article just recently, just to your point. What would have happened in 1969 if they had the resources? They didn't. So it's not a real hypothetical situation, but just what if? If Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera had the resources to move to California, they could, in 1969, have moved to San Francisco, and their lives as trans and drag queen would have been completely different than lower central Manhattan in 1969. What would have happened? The people that are credited for starting the modern civil rights, and of course you can argue the academic point of view of that, but the people that are credited of starting the modern civil rights movement in the LGBTQ community said, no, I don't think so. I'm going to move someplace else. That what if is pretty stark in the point that you just made. Are we going to fight, or are we going to surrender? That's really what the question comes down to. Keep watching the only television news in the world from our LGBTQ plus community, and stay informed on everything that is important for and about our diverse LGBTQ plus community.